Hello, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 320. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I am joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Oh, hello.
Saturn, that was weird. You don't know this, but whenever I introduce you, I punch the air.
Why?
I don't know. I've been doing it for about 100 episodes now.
Okay.
I do like a an air punching. I'm doing it right now because I'm like, yeah, Chris Saturn, and then
have we been remote for 100 episodes now?
I don't know. However long I've been remote, I'm very
pretty close.
Physically expressive when I introduce the show. No one can see it, but I feel like they feel it in their hearts.
They feel it.
Right.
Energy is there.
You can taste it. We don't really have any housekeeping of note.
Yeah.
So maybe
got a website.
We have a website, retrowarriors.net, where you can get our magazine that we published 5 years ago.
You can look back in time at what retro was like 5 years ago.
People have been we're talking about the magazine the other day, and they're like, I really want to do another issue, but I just got to sit down and make the time for it because it's time. Also, my problem was I made the whole thing in a Word document.
I remember that.
Which is the worst way to make a 32-page magazine, let me tell you.
I've got Publisher.
Because I have Publisher too, and I had it at the time. And I opened it, and I went, this seems complicated. I'll just do it in a Word doc. Actually, it wasn't even Word. It was Pages, which is
right, because you're still on a Mac, right?
Yeah, the Mac version of Office. Well, no, not the actual Mac version of Office, but like Apple's version that they wish you would buy instead of Office. And I did it in Pages.
Oh, boy.
And then just exported to PDF.
Gross.
And it sucked. You'd like add something on page 2 and every page would bump down and you'd be like, oh my God.
Yep.
Anyway.
That's why you use a publishing software instead of a word processor.
I published it, so technically it makes Pages a publishing software.
Okay.
Joke's on you. I played Left 4 Dead 2.
That's the only one of that series I've played, yeah.
I'd never played a Left 4 Dead, and my friend who I've been playing a lot of Counter-Strike with was like, you got to play Left 4 Dead. And I was like, I do? And he goes, yeah. And then he bought it for me. And that was pretty
That's
fun
how
game.
I played it, too.
Oh, really?
Somebody said, you got to play this. And I was like, I don't want to buy that. And then the next thing I know, I had a gift in my Steam library.
Yeah.
And they were like, you should play this now. I was like, I guess I'm playing this now. And I played it one time ever.
He was a little nervous because he was like, I know you don't really do scary stuff, so maybe you want to watch a trailer or something. And I was like, it's fine. It's just killing hordes of zombies.
Right.
It's a pretty fun time. Pretty fun time, that game. I don't know why I never played them because I like online multiplayer games, but what I really like is being me and my friends versus the computer. I don't want to compete with other humans, because then I lose. and so I've always liked like PvE style online games, and it never even occurred to me to play any of the Left 4 Dead games, and I played this one and it was a good time. I enjoyed it.
Maybe next time you guys play it, I should install it and play it a second time.
Yeah. You should install it and we'll play. It's a good time.
One of you will have to tell me how to play it.
You point at the zombies and then you shoot the zombies.
My Steam library says it was last played in 2016.
That's probably the exact same as it was then.
It's probably the same.
I bought Cruelty Squad.
Why?
For people that don't know, Cruelty Squad is a mean joke the gaming press is playing on Steam users right now.
Yeah, so I had gone into our Discord to say, why are people reviewing this? Is this just like, am I just seeing this everywhere because I read it once and now I see it everywhere? Or is it really that everyone is reviewing it for some fucking reason? What
it looks like is one of those weird Unity asset swap games, but on acid.
Shitty. Yeah.
And as soon as you see it, you know what kind of game it is. You know those games that are kind of intentionally shitty garbage, but they have some kind of dumb gimmick or visual gag that is going to make streamers buy them and play them.
Yes.
And everyone is insisting. Major outlets are reviewing Cruelty Squad and going, oh, it's really good. It's this weird, goofy, ugly, intentionally bad-looking barf game, but, oh, it's real good.
Yeah, that's what I keep seeing. It's like, once you get past the shitty first layer, you'll discover there's a really deep game beneath.
And maybe there is, but it's like It's like if someone cooked a steak
Uh-huh.
and then they put it in the bottom of a toilet.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's still a steak. But I don't know that I want to dunk my face in there to take a bite.
It's right there, though.
It's right there. It's fine. And I'm sure it's still a delicious steak. And what sold me is because you and I were going back and forth, and I was like, I think I have to buy it.
And I kept saying, don't do that.
And I read a review, and I just pulled it up because I sent it to you. And the review is this. It's from Steam. Soundtrack is made entirely of brown notes. Nauseating graphics. Destroyed myself with a toilet. This is the cyberpunk we deserved. And I played it, and I'll tell you what it is. Because afterward, I went and played the game that it is wanting to be. It's wanting to be like a joke version of Deus Ex. Because a lot of the game is like, oh, you get these different augments and you add them to yourself and they give you different abilities. And then you're going through these large labyrinthian levels in different ways, taking different paths, using different strategies based on your weapon and ability loadout.
Right.
And that's a sound idea, which is an idea that played out in Deus Ex. That was a game that was very well known for.
But what if your health meter was a giant, like, slab of liver or something and took up a third of the screen?
My problem was I like shooting games.
Oh.
And as a shooting game, it controls like dog shit. And I played like an hour and a half of it and returned it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know if I gave it its due or not. It just wasn't, the moment-to-moment gameplay wasn't fun. I didn't care to upgrade my abilities because just controlling my character was not enjoyable.
Yeah.
And in a video game, you spend a lot of time controlling your character.
Yeah.
And I just...
That's true. I've learned that in playing video games in the past.
I can say this confidently. If you're a huge fan of like the first Deus Ex game or games like it, and you've played the shit out of all of them just to death into the ground, and you have a kind of weird sense of humor, then I could see you really liking Cruelty Squad.
Yeah.
If you're like me and you haven't played those games into the ground, maybe just go play those games instead, because they're cheaper and easier to play.
And also better and polished.
So yeah, I think that's why like you're seeing outlets like PC Gamer and Rock Paper Shotgun and stuff giving a good review, because these are guys that are those people. They've played these games to death, and this game is specifically not a there's got to be a word for it, but not a parody, but like
it's like a deconstruction.
Yeah, that's exactly the term. It is a deconstruction of those games. And if you're into that deconstruction of that type of game, then yeah, I totally see what they're going for.
Yeah,
but
so it's weird. I will watch or read game reviews from time to time, but I've learned that most outlets don't even touch the games that I care about. Like the genres that I play and that I enjoy, they just skip right past it. If they do look at it, their review is typically, if you want this game, you already know you want it. And I do.
I don't like that as a review method, although I do use it for Dwarf Fortress. That's the only game that I'm like, if you want to play Dwarf Fortress, you already feel it in your heart.
Right.
And if you don't, then please don't.
But despite that, I still keep watching or reading game reviews about things that I know I'll never play, just because I kind of want to still see what the market is like and what people are playing, and maybe there's something new or interesting or creative that'll make me play a game. And then I just suddenly saw everyone reviewing Cruelty Squad.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this a joke? Is there a meme that I'm missing here? Yeah. And I just couldn't get it, because all of them were like, this game is stupid and it's shit and it looks like shit. And it looks like shit. I mean, everybody gets it, but if you give it a chance,
I feel like I said, if you're someone out there is like, man, the original Deus Ex is my favorite game of all time, and I have that kind of weird Tim and Eric sort of sense of humor, then I could see that person being into that. I could see him being like, yeah, I could see that. I'm neither of those things.
Yeah, that's the opposite of me.
So that's why it didn't. What did work out was the game I played on stream today, which is a game called Proteus, not Parodius.
Oh,
because
I like that one better.
Parodius is the game with the penguin
I
and
love
stuff.
that.
It's Proteus, Prodeus.
Can you add a penguin to this one?
I mean, it's in early access, so the sky's the limit.
I'm willing to play more games if they have penguins. That's all I'm saying.
I bought this game because there was a recommendation on Steam where a person said it's like Doom, but the way I remember it being the first time I played it as a kid. And playing it, I agree with that. It feels very much like a mashup of like 1993 Doom and Doom 2016. It's just a really fun kind of throwback style shooter, but what I notice a lot with these throwback shooters is some of them are too much of a throwback.
Yeah.
They keep too many old designs that don't really work as well. I've been really enjoying the level design. They have some really cool ideas. It's not just that Doom thing of, I don't know, it's a big maze. Like I played a level on stream where it was kind of that maze and you're like circling around this complex, but in the middle of it are two snipers. So anytime you're out in the open, they're firing on you.
Right.
You know, just interesting ideas like that. And it was fun. You know, some levels are like, this level is just a big giant arena. It's just a whole bunch of bad guys. And then there's the standard old school Doom style levels. And then there's levels that have lots of moving parts and different gimmicks. It's just really cool. It's interesting. It's fun. It scratches that same itch for me that Doom 2016 did and that Doom Eternal does not. Because for all its merits, and Doom Eternal has many merits, it feels like a pivot from Doom 2016, not a refinement.
I'll never not hear Doom Eternal.
Well, you know.
Every time. Anyway.
So yeah, if you're like me and you're like, yeah, I played Doom Eternal and I liked it all right, but I really wanted more Doom 2016, then Proteus is great, and you should play it.
Also, Parodius is great.
Also,
but unrelated.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Also, Odemedius. If while we're here,
you can skip Odemedius. It's fine, unless you just really want to see some anime TNA.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you can skip that.
So it's in early access on Steam right now. I think it's $25. And I've played a little over 2 hours of it, and I'm just really enjoying it. It's just really fun. The gunplay is really fun. The gore is, I mean, through the roof. There was one part. It was in my stream where I just unloaded on a pile of creatures with the chain gun. And when it was done, the whole room was red. And there was blood dripping off the ceiling.
Oh, okay.
Like just full on.
Just a normal day in Silent Hill.
It was like The Shining. It was ridiculous. And I do like, they have real 3D models, but you can toggle on and off like a 2D sprite mode.
Yeah.
And some of the enemy models are legitimately kind of creepy to me. So it really does, like that reviewer said on Steam, it's that Doom 1993 feel where it feels really like brutal and dark and awful and kind of creepy and like a little bit scary sometimes. It's that same. Now, obviously, it's doing that by being 10 times more of all of that than Doom was, because Doom doesn't feel that way to us because now it's been 30 years.
Right.
But yeah. So highly recommend Proteus on Steam. I had a good time with that.
Where did the name come from?
I have no idea.
Okay, just curious.
Whatsoever.
It sounds like a third act band at a metal concert.
I think maybe it's supposed to be pronounced Proteus because it's a product that you may buy. There you go. Figured it out. Perfect.
No, I was bouncing through a few games this week.
Yes.
Just trying to find some stuff to play. When I was looking through, just trying to find a recommendation, I looked through the Game Pass quest, and it was like, get some extra points if you play one of these games and get an achievement.
Yeah.
And one of the games listed was this game Haven. So I decided to give Haven a try.
Yeah.
And so gameplay wise, it's a neat gameplay loop. It seems to be like a mix of over the shoulder exploration with quasi rail elements and also possibly survival. Mixed with
you're just saying words now.
Yeah, I know. Mixed with like a heavy-handed adventure game, maybe. And the main characters in it really need to cool down with the PDA. That's the first thing I want to say.
Okay. Okay.
They feel the need to stop and make out and baby talk each other all the time.
Baby talk each other?
Yeah, they'll just be like, stop and be like, who's the most beautiful? I love
seems,
looking in your eyes.
That
and I'm
seems
like,
uncomfortable.
okay, you just need to stop now because I'm watching you. And it just feels like the game constantly feels like you're interrupting someone's private moment.
Yeah.
And you're like, I should leave. I should let you two do whatever's going to happen. And you just tell me when you're done and I'll come back. And no, you're still going? Okay. All right. I'll just come back. Oh, you're still doing it. Fine. And that's as much as I played. I played like half an hour and there was like a crisis and a mild conflict and it looked like they were going to get angry at each other. And then moments later they were like, I could never be mad at you.
I know that when you say baby talking, you probably mean much more attractive than this, but in my head, I imagine him just being like, and then making out.
It's just all that.
And you just being like, man, this is weird. I don't know.
It's kind of awkward. Like I get that they're trying to go for like a somewhat genuine romance story. I get that, but it comes off as just like I walked into somebody's bedroom and
maybe kind of too intimate right off the bat.
Yes, it's awkward.
Yeah,
and then the opposite of that, I played some Hades.
I'm dying to know what you think of Hades.
I'm digging it. I think it's really fun. It's got
because Saturn, I'll have you know, it is a roguelite.
What?
In case you were unaware.
Yeah,
I also played a bit more just because everyone was talking about it and playing it. And,
yeah, because it did come out on Game Pass. So
yeah, well, I played the Switch version. I played Game Pass version for a minute, and I've lost all my progression, and I went to the Switch version.
Yeah, so I was playing around with it a little bit. I think I went through like 7 loops, give or take.
Yeah.
I got a little ways into the second area, where I learned that I could just walk into lava and die.
Mm-hmm.
That was good. That was not
as a very dash focused player. I spend most of my time in the lava. Actually,
see, I got past the first boss with like 4 health left.
Yeah. So you just died immediately.
I did. I went to the second area, and when I was trying to walk into the next room, I just walked into lava and died. So that second area didn't last long. But no, I like it. I like that even though you are constantly restarting, which is normal for a roguelite game, you do get to carry over something. And I appreciate that. That makes me feel like I am at least making progress. And on top of that, there is still a ongoing narrative that incorporates in your constant failure.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like I'm just having to restart.
And I know that you don't play a lot of the genre, but this is really where most roguelites are these days. Almost all of them have this. Yeah. There is, yes, the core gameplay loop is repeated, but there's this static progression on top of it now.
That was what attracted me to Rogue Legacy a few years ago.
Yeah, which is another
possibly
great
5
game.
Years ago. And it is a great game, but then I got maybe 5 or so hours into it, maybe a little more than that, and I just kind of felt like I stopped making any progress. Like I had run into a brick wall and couldn't get any further.
And that is the upside to the design of the story progression in Hades, which is that you will eventually hit that brick wall, but then new story stuff still keeps popping up.
Yeah, and I appreciate that there is some incentive to keep going. Rather than just maybe someday you'll get past that.
Right. Instead of just grinding away at building structures or whatever to maintain your static progression.
Yeah. So, but I'm enjoying what I've played so far. I'm probably going to keep chipping away at it. I don't know that it'll be something that I, get super into, but it'll be something that I maybe throw a few runs at it here and there.
Yeah. I still recommend for people that are like, I like Hades, I like roguelites, I want to try a more traditional roguelike. Tangle Deep is still my go-to recommendation. It's just what a stellar game.
Yeah, I haven't tried the easy mode or god mode or whatever it is yet in Hades, so I don't know what that does.
I've never played with that. I'll tell you what it
Oh.
does is every time you die, it reduces the damage you take by 2% permanently.
Huh.
So if you've been
That would
playing
add
with, yeah, it does add up. And if you've been playing without it, then you're basically dying and not getting anything for it, like a chump.
No, I'm still getting stuff. I'm getting those little purple dots, and I got some gems.
I dumped I turned God mode on immediately when I started playing, and I've dumped all of my resources into extra lives and health. So now when I play, I think I have like 2 or 3 lives.
Yeah, I think the extra life was the first thing I unlocked.
Yeah.
And then I got the collar from Cerberus, which lets me have some extra health now.
Yeah,
and
if
then
you get Skelly's Tooth, I think, is the other extra life thing. Because there's the Death Defiance that you get in the mirror, but then Skelly's Tooth is the item that you can then level up.
Can you wear more than one item? Because so far as I can tell, I can only wear one at a time.
That's correct, but you can do, I don't remember how you unlock it, but you can unlock the ability to change items between areas.
Oh, nice.
So you can be like, oh, I want this item in the first area, but then when I go into the second area, I want this item.
Yeah, I think I may have already paid for that at the little construction dude.
I think that's where it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I built a relic gallery or relic rack or whatever in another place. And I was like, where is it? I don't see it anywhere. And I didn't catch it all where it said it was going to be. So it's probably waiting for me after the boss again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no,
such
it's
a fun game.
Yeah, it's really neat. I'm digging on it more than I thought I would. It's very it's one of those games that's viscerally fun to play. Like every motion and every movement just feels nice.
Yeah, and
I got to give them credit for that. And then I also have been playing Quake a little bit.
Yes, as have I.
Which, just spoiler for our first news item, Quake was leaked in the QuakeCon schedule as a revitalized edition, and then just announced and launched immediately.
I cannot play Quake with a controller.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even trying. I just immediately
tried
it on my PC.
Holy crap! I was like, "What is happening?"
What about the N64 version?
What about it?
Yeah, no, It took me many attempts to get it to install on my computer. It didn't want to install on either of my computers. I just kept getting error messages. And then finally, I waited a full day from when everyone else was able to download it. And I was like, oh, you wanted Quake? Here you go.
Yeah.
And it's running fine now. It was weird because not only does it immediately play in 4K without me having to do anything weird to get it to run, but then I play through a level and it popped an achievement at me. And I was like, I'm playing Quake and it just popped an achievement. What is going on?
Yeah.
But no, it's neat.
Let's fire through some news real quick. First up, Quake Revitalized Edition came out. It's on Game Pass right now. You can go play it. It is a real, genuine, I don't want to call it a remaster, but they have remastered a lot of it.
Yeah.
It includes the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack. It includes new lighting and shadow engine. Online multiplayer works fine over Xbox Live and cross plays with PC. It's good.
Does it cross play with other consoles?
That I don't know.
I know that LRG is going to be publishing physical releases for Switch, PS4, and PC. Oddly, not on Xbox, despite the fact that it's a first-party Xbox game.
Yeah, that'd be nice,
Weird.
but oh well.
Yeah.
More SNES concept art released by Nintendo design and brand director Lance Barr.
It looks so neat. Did you look through this stuff?
One. I've not seen. I saw the previous one.
Oh yeah, it's basically just more sketches, a lot like the ones that were in the Playing with Superpower book that came out around the time the Super NES Classic came out. It's just more of his sketches from that era, and it's just really neat stuff. I love seeing that those early design sketches, and some of them are just butt ugly. But he did show some more where you can see that he is moving into the purple and away from the NES
bad
color
colors
scheme.
From the bad colors.
No, not the. It's not even addressing the Japanese model. It's just because originally it was going to be just like a big NES with a top-loading port, but still the NES color scheme of the like gray with the black stripe and the red stripe, and then slowly it migrates from that into the purple color scheme, and it's really neat to see the evolution of it.
John Romero making Sigil 2.
Okay.
Good on him, man. The last one was free. You could pay for a version with the soundtrack. It was $6.66.
Of course it was.
Presumably this one will be free too. As much as I like making fun of John Romero, I don't know, releasing free games is cool. So
Yeah, that's
good
nice.
on him.
I know nothing
Myst
about it,
Remake coming to all platforms on August 26th will be day one on Game Pass. No, we won't do an episode
Nope,
on
still
it.
not going to play it.
Please stop asking.
I'm not going to play it.
Atari reports losses despite the release of the VCS.
What?
Wow! It's sold out.
When they released the VCS? If our voices get higher pitched, it's more disbelief, right?
It's going to be a sine wave. New Shining Force mobile game announced as part of an IP deal between mobile developer Hive and Sega. Does this look like shit? I didn't look at it.
It looks like a gotcha game.
All right, then. Sega renews some trademarks on Crusader of Sinti, Ranger X, and Linkle Liver Story.
Which are mostly beloved games. I
Yes.
imagine it's probably just for legal purposes. I doubt anything new is happening. Maybe it'll be included in some bundle or something, but I doubt it.
ESRB rating hints at re-release of previous Disney classic game collection, this time with The Jungle Book, I guess.
So it's Lion King, Aladdin, and now also Jungle Book in
Is
one
The
collection.
Jungle Book a beloved Disney classic game?
It's a beloved Disney classic movie.
Well, yeah, I'm aware of, I'm aware of the movie Saturn.
The game existed.
I feel like if a review from the time didn't lambaste it for not having enough features by way of saying it was the bare necessities, then they lost their chance in the sun. Soulja Boy owns Atari and is the CEO, according to Soulja Boy, and not Atari. I like. What?
Exactly.
This is just straight up him getting free PR, and it fucking worked because the story I read was like, Soulja Boy, whose most recent project is blank. I was like, why are you fucking selling me on him?
Right.
Stop. Fishing added to Skyrim. Yeah! Can't wait. We mentioned it last episode. All the more reason to play Skyrim. Now you can fish, Saturn.
Yeah. I already was not interested in Skyrim. Now I'm less interested in Skyrim.
If they make the game uninteresting enough, at some point, don't you have to play it?
No.
Just because... Okay.
Now, see, I'm not the one who bought Cruelty Squad.
Leave me alone. I got a refund. The rest of the Master Games for Lost Judgment are revealed.
The Master Games.
The Master System games
There
for
you go.
Lost Judgment. The Master Games.
The Master Games.
The Master Games sounds like one of those like multi-game cartridges you got on the NES that was like 50 games for like $100.
I thought it sounded like the shitty direct to VHS parody of the Hunger Games.
The Master Games. Alex Kidd and Miracle World Fantasy Zone, Penguin Land, Quartet, Enduro Racer, Woody Pop, and Maze Hunter 3D, and Secret Command are all going to be included in Lost Judgment.
And if you aren't already a Master System fan, those all sound like games we just made up. They're not.
No.
Those are Master System games.
And you should definitely play Fantasy Zone, so
Yes.
putting it out there. I feel like I like Quartet, but I can't remember. A brewery in Maryland is making a series of unauthorized Final Fantasy VII IPAs. So if you like IPAs, I don't, then you can drink them, and they are beer.
And they have
like.
Final Fantasy VII art on them.
Cute.
If you're willing to go to Maryland to buy them.
Or you could go on Redbubble and order as many Final Fantasy VII stickers as you want and put them on your beer of choice.
Yeah, that way you can have your own Coors Light, but Final Fantasy VII edition.
It's an option.
If you want your Schlitz to have Yuffie on it.
My Schlitz. What do you got to drink? Just Schlitz and Mad Dog. That's it.
Yeah, so you are as aware of anyone is of my crippling Coke Zero addiction. So sometimes I'll be on a meeting at work and I don't turn on my webcam because I'm not a monster. And if I open up a Coke Zero while I'm on my meeting, apparently my microphone on my work headset will pick that up. And my boss always says, "Oh, already time to open another Schlitz, huh?" 5 o'clock somewhere.
let's get into the topic at hand. This week we're talking Mini Motorways and the evolution of infrastructure-based city building games.
That was we couldn't have truncated that, could we?
There's no way.
All right. That was as brief as we could get it.
Now I'm tempted to make the actual title when I publish it just like 40 words long. A synopsis: this is the evolution and current state of think-em-ups.
Is that what we're calling it?
With a focus on Mini Motorways. Basically, we wanted to talk about Mini Motorways, but we wanted it through some type of lens that related it back to retro gaming.
Right.
So here we are.
Yeah.
And yeah, I found a review of some city builder game that called them think-em-ups.
Weird.
And I liked that. So now they are think-em-ups.
Nice.
So we will talk about Mini Motorways shortly.
Yeah.
But first, we kind of want to talk about sort of the evolution of city builder games, and then we're going to explain why we're talking about Mini Motorways at all in relation to city builders.
Yeah.
So, just for context,
yes,
let's talk about major city building franchises from the past and kind of where city builder games were before we get into why Mini Motorways is here at all.
Yeah.
And obviously we have to start with the SimCity games.
Yes.
Which are kind of the true simulation style infrastructure building game that when people talk about city builder games, they're always including SimCity, and then it's a question of whether or not they include these other ones.
Right.
You've also got the Cities XL and XXL games, which came out. These were later ones. These were 2009, 2010, 2011 era.
Yeah, it was basically after SimCity had died, and the fan base was hungry for more, and they wanted to try to capture that audience while they were still desperate. And then Maxis tried to relaunch it.
And then after that era, it kind of dovetails us straight into the Cities Skylines era of where city builders are now.
Yeah.
And as far as like pure city builders, where you are building a modern metropolitan city, those are kind of the big beats of the city builder. For you had SimCity, and then SimCity 2000, 3000, SimCity 4, and then kind of the decline, dovetailing into Cities Skylines. And I feel like you can draw a direct lineage from the original SimCity to Cities Skylines pretty easily.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there have been other offshoots from that, people who have tried to make other games. There's one that I've got in my Steam library now that's still in early access at this point, but it's starting to get somewhere, called New City. And it feels like somebody played so much SimCity 2000 and just wanted to remake it, but without having any of the tools or infrastructure that SimCity 2000 had. So they're basically making it from scratch, and in doing so, they are giving it some modern quality of life improvements. It's neat. It's definitely still early access, but it's already showing some promise as far as that classical style of city builder goes.
Yeah. I do want to make a distinction here between traditional city builder games and city builder games that include warfare.
Yeah.
Because you see a lot of other games lumped in with city builders in varying degrees. Things like the Anno games, things like Caesar 1 through 4, the Tropico games.
Right.
You see these lumped in, and in my head, they're always different because they include some facet of warfare.
Yeah, it feels like the bridge between simulation and strategy at that point.
Right, exactly. And maybe they're not necessarily full strategy games. Like, I've played a bunch of Anno 1400, and most of the game is you building a city and supply lines and infrastructure and stuff like that. But then it turns into a strategy game.
Right.
Which is fine if you want that, and very often I do, but I don't know that I would consider them pure city builders.
Right. And then there was stuff that was kind of in between the two, like Civ City Rome, which is a game that 2K would rather we all forgot existed.
You also get stuff like I see, like if you go to city building video games on Wikipedia, just the genre, Dwarf Fortress is included.
Oh,
and it's one of those things where it is a city building game.
Yeah.
You are building a city of dwarves. You do fight some things, but there's not like that strategy warfare. It's like you'll get invaded by an angry elk that showed up, but it's not like, all right, now it's turned into my army versus your army.
Right.
So there's some weird gray area. But really, SimCity dovetailing into City Skylines is the big stuff. And I did just kind of want to, before we start talking about Mini Motorways, discuss sort of the core gameplay loop we expect from city builders. Right. And for me, it's this increasing of tension, right? Where things start really low stakes. And you have a large amount of resources. You usually start with a lump sum in these things, and usually the difficulty is determined by how much money you start with.
Usually, yeah.
And then you're sort of building this house of cards. But for me, I feel like city builders, they need to have this thing where you're building this house of cards, but the house can never totally collapse, if that makes sense.
Unless you keep releasing Bowser.
Right. Unless you're intentionally mucking things up. But like what I loved about SimCity growing up is that you never really lost SimCity.
Right.
Which was nice.
You might fail.
But on the other hand, you would sometimes reach these sort of soft fail states.
Right.
Where it was like, you're so screwed that you just have to start over.
You see, my soft fail state that I always hit was... my goal was always to hit that 500,000 population to hit the final milestone. And I would constantly be able to make cities that would hit about 315. And then just for no reason I could ascertain, the population would just start tanking. And I'd drop down to about 220 and live there forever. And I could not ever figure out how to make it grow again.
Yeah. I also feel like there's the discussion of complexity, which is important. And really it boils down to how does an increase in game complexity diverge from the classic city builder gameplay loop? Because what we've seen in this evolution of SimCity over the years is the original SimCity was a relatively simplistic game.
Yes.
Most of its ports were pretty simplistic. SimCity 2000 added a whole layer of complication on it.
Yes.
But it was mostly... like fiddly stuff, infrastructure related complication. And then as time grew all the way into City Skylines, we've reached this level of like this, it's this abstraction versus granularity thing, right?
Right.
Where I like the abstraction of the original SimCity.
Yes. And I am constantly overwhelmed by City Skylines to the point where I barely know what's going on. In the original SimCity, like you said, it's an abstraction. You've got these perfectly square units, and you just get to place roads or rails between them.
Yeah,
and everything fits perfectly in a grid, and it's completely unrealistic. That's not how an actual city would generally be able to survive. But in the SimCity world, it's so abstracted that it does work that way. And as SimCity itself evolved, you started to see a divergence from that. Even SimCity 2000 already added variable-sized zoning. So you could have as large of a plot of residential as you wanted, and then just place roads throughout it however you want.
Yeah.
So you already started to see slowly SimCity ramp up to where it was more of a quasi-realistic simulation. But it always became a question of what exactly are you simulating? And I feel like Cities tries to go more for that the actual city management and population management simulation.
It's this level of high granularity.
Right.
Whereas you're concerned about like how many sick people are in this one office building.
Right. Whereas even the later SimCity games, not counting that last one, were still a little more abstract. It was, well, you can look at your traffic, you can look at your crime statistics, you can look at your education, but these are all at the macro level. You're just seeing what the entire city is like, or you can look at a graph of where there are hotspots of things, but that's about as detailed as it's going to give you. You still kind of have to abstract the rest of it.
I feel like it's been this sort of divergence away from city building and infrastructure management games being pretty casual.
Yeah.
To becoming increasingly hardcore over the years. And I feel like City Skylines is one of those games where every time I sit down, I'm like, all right, I'm going to play City Skylines. And I play it, and it's fun in the beginning.
Yeah.
And a thing that I noticed kind of across the board that city builders struggle with, including SimCity, is the late game. There is no late game. You just eventually get bored or decide you've failed and you move on.
Or you've decided you've succeeded. You decide this is as much as you wanted out of this,
and you're like,
and you move on.
Now I'm done. And so it turns into this thing where there's no structure to the play experience, which is a draw, but at the same time, it means that you always just kind of meander away from them.
My other thing is there's been this divergence from the earliest games, especially when you look at like the oldest SimCity games. It felt very like you'd said, they felt casual. I don't even know if casual is the right word for it. It was very self-explanatory. Kind of like it was something that you could easily explain to someone without having to study microeconomics.
So elegant without being necessarily simplistic.
Right.
There, as much as we're saying that, yes, the earlier games were more simplistic, they weren't, I don't know that I would say they were simple games.
Sure.
I think I did earlier, but I was wrong.
But it feels like we went from where it was a game based on a simulation to now where it feels more like a simulation masquerading as a game.
Yeah.
And it feels like it has lost some of its gaminess as the genre has evolved.
Yeah. I do feel like for something to feel like a city builder to me, there cannot be direct warfare.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Which is why things like Caesar and Anno and Stronghold, all kind of Tropico, all kind of fall out of it for me.
Yeah, they feel more like light strategy games to me.
It needs to be more like Simtown.
Yeah,
right, because that's the go-to.
And just actually, with where you are now, you need to move over to Sim Farm.
Oh, is that it? I do feel like there was this kind of drive toward granularity that I felt around the time The Sims came out.
Yeah.
And I remember when The Sims came out, all my friends who liked Sims and liked SimCity were all wanting a SimCity game where you could zoom into the individual person level.
Right. Which you kind of can in SimCity 4.
Yeah, this sort of lets you. I mean, you can't. It's not like The Sims once you get down there, but I feel like there was this sort of. I don't want to call it a push because I don't know that there was a concerted effort in the development community to do so. Right. But just among fans, at the time that I knew, myself included, we were all like, "Oh man, what if the next SimCity, it's the Sims and SimCity all smushed into one? Because people live in a city and people are Sims."
Well, they had pitched that Simsville game that was supposed to come out that would be kind of the in between step. Where you had Sims, but living in a little community, and they couldn't make it work. And really, I think the closest they ever got to that game that had the major scale all the way down to the minor scale was Spore, which is not even close to a city builder.
It's not, but it does kind of feel like that,
Yeah.
I do feel like specifically the SimCity DS games did a good job of kind of getting back to what made city builders great to me, which is this kind of decreased complexity, decreased granularity, and more kind of macro management type stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk Mini Motorways and why the hell we're talking about it. As far as release information, this was developed and published by Dinosaur Polo Club. They're the people that brought us Mini Metro, which is also a very fine abstract puzzle game.
Right.
Released on iOS September 19th, 2019. Released on Steam July 20th, 2021. And on Switch, it is currently planned for early 2022. It is an abstract traffic game. It's a traffic game. It's a traffic simulation game.
A moment ago, you called it a puzzle game, and not once have I considered that it could be a puzzle game. But now that you say it out loud, I think
it absolutely is a puzzle game.
It could be a puzzle game.
So to break down what Mini Motorways is, basically, you are presented with a very abstract, very soothing, colorful palette. You are given a large building, and then you're giving a house that matches its color, and that house wants to go to that building.
Yes.
And so you need to connect it with a road. Mm-hmm. And then the game grows itself. The city builds itself.
Yes. While
you gain more houses and more different locations of different colors, and the houses want to go to their corresponding colors, so you're suddenly creating this labyrinth of traffic.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, and trying to make it as efficient as possible. That's your core gameplay loop, right?
Yes.
And what's interesting to me is it came out, you bought it.
Yes.
And then I bought it, and then Pablo bought it.
Yeah.
And then we were all playing it, and you said to me, it really scratches that sort of city builder Sim City itch for me.
Yes,
and my first thought was, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's not even remotely one of those games. And then my next thought was, I mean, yeah, it does. It does kind of feel the same.
Yeah.
And what it is I think it's this level of abstract macro management that it does very well, that it lifts directly from this sort of older lineage of city builder games, but it takes out the entire aspect of you building the city.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with you optimizing your city.
Right. And in fact, the way that they build their city is often completely dumb. And I fucking hate them.
It's
Why
stupid.
did you build that house on the other side of the river when you know the factory you want to go to is way the fuck on the other side of the map? Why did you do that?
I do think a lot of why it kind of has that same sort of like old school SimCity vibe is very much the presentation.
Yes.
Like Mini Motorway or like Mini Metro, it's very soothing, very calm, color palette. Everything's very like soft edges, very muted tones,
super stylized, not very realistic at all. Very, very stylized.
And I think some of what kind of makes it have that same sort of feel for me also is that in city builders, I don't care about my citizens.
That's true.
I'm not here to listen to citizens bitch to me on a fake version of Twitter like in Cities Skylines. I don't care. I'm here because the character in this story that I care about is the city.
Right.
Not the citizens. The citizens are just the gameplay structure for me interacting with my city.
Right.
And I feel like Mini Motorways, in many ways, many motorways, you might say, the game makes it feel like your city is a character. Your city is this constantly growing like pet that you're trying to tend to.
Right.
And it makes it feel like the city is front and center, not the citizens. You never care about these dumb little jerks that need to get to the red building and the blue building and the light blue building. Why don't you go to the regular blue building? Why doesn't the light blue building have the same stuff as the regular blue building? They're both blue. But it gives you this sense of you care about the city, but you don't care about, the individual granular level of every person in it.
And even seeing the little cars driving back and forth, you gain no affection for them. If anything, you gain hatred for them because they seem to intentionally get themselves stuck in the stupidest fucking ways.
Now, I do also feel like there's this act of this motion and city building games that a lot of times when I'm playing them, a lot of what I'm doing is just sitting there and watching.
That's true.
And just watching this city that I've created operate And I feel like newer city builder games, they want to get away from that. They don't want you sitting there watching. They want you always having something to do. This building has a problem. This building has a problem. This building's abandoned. Let's keep working on things constantly.
Your sewage is backed up. Oh, this is on fire. It's just such a...
And it's a thing that we kind of saw even as early as SimCity 2000, where suddenly buildings would be abandoned and you had to destroy them so that they could rebuild there.
But even in the first SimCity, you get that.
Yeah. And it's this thing where they're trying to put in this thing of, well, we want you interacting with it. And in earlier games, it was there, but it wasn't really a major deal. In newer city building games, and even some of the newer Sim Cities and City Skylines for sure, it's this thing where, it's always got you doing these different sort of menial tasks that aren't necessarily affecting things. And I feel like in Mini Motorways, there are chunks of time where the city's always slowly growing, but you're just kind of sitting there enjoying it and getting to take in this thing that you've put together,
But simultaneously, there's a minimal level of stress on top of it. So you're like, when's that next house going to pop up? Yeah, I know another factory is going to pop up, and it's going to be in the worst place.
But there's this gap where every time something new pops up, you've got a few seconds to because we haven't said this. You can speed up and pause the game. So the way I play it anyway, and this is I think why I get that city builder feel is when something new pops up, I pause and I build for it.
Right.
And so there I am building my city. I get that kind of city building motion.
Yeah, right.
And then I unpause and I just watch it.
Yeah.
I just watch it exist. I judge whatever structure I've built. Maybe I delete it real quick and build it up a different way because I'm like, oh, that was stupid. But it's this motion of I build a thing and then I just kind of sit there and I just watch it. I just watch it exist.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that's the portion of this gameplay loop that feels like a city builder, even though again, you're not building a city. The city builds itself. You're building roads.
Yeah, at best you're building the infrastructure of the city, and you're still given limited options as far as what you get to build because they're already building the origins and destinations for you.
Yeah.
You just have to build the go-between.
Let's talk tools that you're given in the game.
Yeah.
It has bridges and tunnels, which are pretty self-explanatory.
Right.
It has traffic lights that you can put in. It has roundabouts, and it has motorways, which are basically highways, that go over all of your other roads.
Yeah.
The game, like Mini Metro before it, randomly gives you a choice of two of these things, and you get to pick one.
Yeah.
And generally, the better choice will give you less road tiles to work with.
Yeah, I know motorways always give you less road tiles. I think the rest of them give you the same, don't they?
They may.
But then sometimes you get an option for no upgrade, but just more road tiles.
Right. And I struggle with some of these. Bridges and tunnels I use a bunch. Roundabouts to me are the most useful with the way I build.
Yeah, same here.
Motorways, I go back and forth. Sometimes I'll put in a motorway and I'm like, man, that was a genius idea. What a genius place for a motorway. Other times I put it in and I'm like, nobody's using it.
You can move them.
I know, but then you gotta, and this is really my only gripe with the game, is when you remove things, you have to wait until all cars who have used that road are back home off of the road.
Yeah, well, it's not any of them that have used it. It's any of them that are currently pathed to it.
Right.
So if they are already programmed and scheduled to drive on that road or highway right now, they will go there. And with the motorways especially, it feels like it gives them a lot of leeway to the point that all the cars can go there. And as long as there's one still on it, then others can keep queuing up and it never actually deletes.
And it does kind of create, as opposed to Mini Metro before, where Mini Metro, you could destroy your whole Metro and rebuild it with the game pause and everything instantly just jumps into place wherever you've snapped it to.
Yeah.
Mini Motorways makes you wait.
Yes.
And it's this thing where it's kind of set it up so that you can't just destroy all your roads and rebuild your city. You have to be committed to this city that you've kind of put together.
Right.
Which I kind of like
least,
that.
Yeah, it gives it a layer of difficulty, and you can technically destroy your whole city. It just makes you work for it now.
Yeah, for sure. And it does, I do feel a little duplicitous because whenever people talk about City Skylines, I always inevitably bitch and go, well, the end game in that is just a traffic simulator. And here is a game that is literally
purely a traffic simulator.
A traffic simulator. And I'm in here wanting to talk about why I think it's a more fun city building type experience than City Skylines.
Yeah.
And I should be very clear that in City Skylines, managing the traffic sucks. It sucks.
I'll be
It's
honest.
hard.
The traffic management is my favorite part of SimCity 4.
Really?
I love the traffic management in that game. I love making highways and subways and all that kind of stuff just to mitigate my traffic and make sure that the traffic is always smooth in that game. That's my favorite part of the game. But when I get to City Skylines, so much of the rest of the game is so overcomplicated for me that I never get to that groove where I feel like I can just let everything else coast and just focus on any one thing, especially the traffic. So even when it does get to that point where the game is heavily forcing me to micromanage traffic, there's so many other things I'm also supposed to be focused on that I never really feel like I'm in the zone. I just feel like I'm being given more work.
So does Mini Motorways solve any of the problems of traditional city builders for you?
For me, I feel like what it brings to the table is that while it has that feel, it's not the same game because it's basically like the arcade version of SimCity.
Yeah, and that I would agree with that a lot. It very much feels like that.
Yeah.
I do like that it does provide a hard lose state.
Yeah.
Like Mini Metro, if someone needs to get somewhere and they can't get in there a certain amount of time, your map is over. You've just lost the entire game. You have to go back out. I do love it has all the different cities it has, and they do require kind of different building techniques.
Right.
Which is really interesting to me. I'm really terrible at all the ones except for the very first one, which is Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think having kind of a hard lose state prevents you from getting in that sort of area of I'm completely bankrupt, but I've put 30 hours into this city. I don't want to give it up, but I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Or the other safety valve, which, as we talked about previously, was traditionally games adding warfare. Okay, now it turns into a strategy game. Now you're pivoting because the end for a city building game is you decide you don't want to build a city anymore, and that's it.
And also in a traditional city building game, the closest to any score that you could use to try to determine how successful you are has almost always been population. Is my population at this level? But because they are city simulators, people can move out. So just because you hit that high score doesn't mean you're staying there. People can start to leave.
It doesn't mean you've built a good, efficient, sustainable city.
Right. So that score, as it were, can be in flux throughout your game. Whereas with this, it tracks the number of successful trips that your little tiny cars have made. And so it only goes up. There is no reversal. So even when you do eventually reach that fail state, which you will, you have a definitive score, not where did I end up once everything hit the fan.
Right. Not how high could I artificially inflate my population to go, I got 3 million people in my city.
Or how many were left by the time the city finally collapsed in on itself.
Right.
Instead, you have a more definitive number, which is, again, what gives it that arcadey feel.
Most definitely. Let's talk final thoughts on Mini Motorways. Because realistically, we just wanted to do an episode on it.
That's true.
But it's kind of one of those games where it's hard to talk about it.
Yeah.
For any major length of time.
Also, until we started literally recording this, it hadn't occurred to me that it was a puzzle game. So that's...
I don't understand.
I don't know how that completely bypassed me. I was like, well, it's clearly some sort of map simulator. This can't be
A map simulator.
This-
I think, and you put this in the notes. I've been saying city builders. You titled the episode "Mini Motorways and the Evolution of Infrastructure Games."
Right.
And I feel like that's much more descriptive of this genre, if we are including Mini Motorways, is to say these are infrastructure games where you are interacting with infrastructure.
Yes. You're building out and allowing something to take place in the area that you've built out, which really most of the city builders that way as well. All you're placing is zones. Very few of them let you place the actual buildings themselves outside of governmental structures like police or fire or whatever.
And realistically, most of them demand certain levels of certain zones. So all you're really picking is the configuration of the zones that you're going to build regardless, because that's what the city wants.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I don't know that I miss the abstracting out of that particular player choice in the interest of a more definitive, enjoyable, abstract type of game like Mini Motorways.
There's definitely something to be gained here just by making it honestly more gamey. It does give it more of a when I play Civ, you end up in that one more turn mode where you just want to you're not ready to give up your map, and this both solves that by forcing you to end your map, but also exacerbates the problem by making each map so fast that I'll just play one more. I'll do another one here.
As far as final thoughts, I think Mini Motorways is a fantastic puzzle game. I think if you like city builders, and specifically maybe you're looking for something a little more, like you said, game-like and less simulation-like, which is, again, where the whole genre seems to be pivoting into.
Right.
I say pivoting. It's been here for 20 years.
More than 20 years.
Then I think Mini Motorways is something you should definitely be paying attention to.
Absolutely.
Because, man, what a fun infrastructure video game.
Yeah, when I picked up Mini Metro a few years ago, I had fun with it. I thought it was a neat little experiment to try to not make my people hate me. But I felt like the hate came too quickly, and I never really accomplished what I was trying to in it.
Yeah.
And honestly, Mini Motorways has a very similar gameplay loop, and rounds last about the same amount of time. But for some reason, it feels like you have done more in this, and it gives me more reward. I don't know if it literally does or not, but the feeling is there.
I feel like there is, and this is kind of backtracking away from final thoughts, but as far as like why it feels so different from Mini Metro when it's kind of effectively the same, just cars instead of trains.
Right.
I think a lot of it boils down to the presentation in Mini Motorways.
Yeah.
It's so soft and tactile feeling and round, and it's like a big squishy stress ball, but it's a video game. Yeah. And Mini Metro is always one of those games that looked really cool. The way it was presented was it looks like you're building one of those Metro maps you would see in like a subway.
Right.
And what a cool idea, and it looks neat, but you never really feel this sort of like I'm sure there's a word for it,
right?
But I have this like weird emotional attachment to the assets in Mini Motorways. I get a lot of pleasure looking at them, and I'm like, I don't know what it is. I feel the presentation is so much in
Those
this
little
game.
Tiny people.
And I just care about these dumb little idiot cars that are putting their dumb houses in the wrong dumb area.
Oh my God.
Idiots.
They're so fucking stupid.
And so I don't know that it's such a dramatically different game as much as it's just tweaked enough. It's just presented just right.
Yeah.
A lot of it is also with Mini Metro, you know the path, because what you're building in Mini Metro is the path that you know they have to take.
Right.
In Mini Motorways, a lot of the time you're building paths, but you're not totally sure exactly where all the traffic's going to flow on it.
Yeah.
So it creates this kind of free-flowing water effect where you're sort of trying to figure out where the traffic is flowing into.
Right.
Where Mini Metro, you have exact control over exactly where this train is going to go. There is no question. That portion of the game is already solved.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to be good at it.
I'm not.
So I feel like that endears Mini Motorways to me a lot more than Mini Metro, because I feel like I'm trying to sort of wrangle this unwieldy flow of traffic that is abstract from any individual car or stop or house.
Right.
Where in Mini Metro, it's more direct, I guess, to get completely in the weeds and lose what I was talking about. Mini Motorways is good. You should play it. It's a good game.
It is. It is a good game.
I like it. I hope that their next game is even better and maybe a little more city buildery, but still not simulation-y.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
That's what I want to see. That would be good for me.
I feel like that would be the natural evolution from where they've done so far. So it feels right.
I could see them easily kind of pivoting into like real abstract, direct city building.
Yeah,
and I could see that being pretty good.
I feel like the next natural evolution would be the one where I plop the little houses and they have to build the fucking roads.
How the turns have tabled, little cars. Here's a shovel, get to fucking work.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anyway, that's our show on Mini Motorways and infrastructure-based games. We hope you liked it. We also hope you like our Patreon. It's at patreon.com/retrowarriors. And you can get cool things like Talking Wizards, which is our spinoff show, and stuff like that.
Someday you'll make a segue that's not awkward.
We do also want to thank the following specific patrons who specifically made this specific episode specifically possible, starting with Lachlan Heatherton.
And Brian Kim.
Sponsored by Honest Bob's Dildo and Butt Plug Emporium.
Jason Frodnick and his frog Fred.
Austin Wheeler.
Blaster Keaton.
Sharp Cheddar.
Grady Haynes.
Video Rangers Podcast.
And King Vidiot.
Are all the patrons that made this episode possible. So we do thank them from the bottom of our hearts. Indeed. And we thank you for listening to this episode about us making a game fit into a genre that we wanted it to go into.
Yes.
And we made it. Square Peg Round Hole. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week.
It still feels
and
like
as always, let us cling together.